to Afya Fix. This is our new season, season 2. We're so glad you're here. You're always with us, and we are delighted to have our guest who has been part of this show through and through, Dr. Eddie Ramirez. Dr. Eddie Ramirez comes to us from Pennsylvania State, where he's the Health Ministries Director. And he is an international speaker, a researcher, an author. He just released a new book, so we are very happy to have him. And he loves to talk about health. He is a lifestyle medicine doctor. Today we are going to talk about something that you may have experienced and heard many times. In this part of the world, there is always hunger. And I have my live audience to help me unpack this story. So welcome all of you. I'm Gladys Ombongi, your host, and karibuni sana. Daktari, karibu sana to Nairobi. We're so happy to have you again. Now, we want to talk about fasting. Would you like to tell us what is fasting?
Yes. So fasting is when we voluntarily stop eating. That's basically the definition. So, sometimes some people are in, dire circumstances and, food security and so forth. That's not necessarily fasting. You may have to, not eat, but for the purpose of fasting, that's what we're talking about today, when we voluntarily stop eating. And, there's a lot of research on this subject. Scientific literature and also in the clinical practice, sometimes we use certain fasting interventions for certain conditions. And that's what we want to focus today, to try to understand, when is that fasting prescribed and so forth. Okay. In fact, in our depression program, in our lifestyle program that I have been involved for many years in Weimar, California, fasting is part of the program. So when somebody has especially metabolic problems, weight problems, we may prescribe a fasting for them.
Okay. That's when they have perhaps metabolic problems. What about in areas where we're experiencing hunger, like us here in Africa?
That's right.
Would we still use it?
Yeah, so when you analyze the epidemiology, what do people are getting sick, what do people are dying here in this part of the world, it's an interesting fact. You find both extremes. There are people that are literally dying of malnutrition in this area of the world, but at the same time, you find people that are dying of excess nutrition in this part of the world. So what we're talking about here, it's not very much applicable to this side of the population, the ones that are having issues with food security. We're focusing more on those ones that are having the overabundance. And many people are very obsessed today, I want to, buy this supplement or this and that. And what we're seeing in this area of the world also is that many times this other subgroup, their problem is not deficiencies, the problem is overabundance. And when you're talking about, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and many other conditions, those are conditions of oversupply.
And before we go into your research, I would like to make reference to the oldest book that we have, the Bible. What does the Bible say about fasting?
That's right. It's interesting that the Bible mentions fasting in many instances, not just once, but in many instances. In fact, it says there, by Jesus' counsel, the disciples were having a hard time getting a demon out of somebody. And Jesus just came and boom, did the job just like that. And he told him, there are certain problems that will not come out except by fasting and prayer. And I think that's a very wise application. All of us sometimes in our lives go through difficult situations in which we don't understand, what's next, what should I decide, and so forth. That's a very well prescribed time for fasting and praying. When you're fasting and you're praying, you have a closer connection with God. So use that opportunity for spiritual growth, doing that, fasting and prayer methodology.
So that is for your spiritual connection. What about your immunity, your body? I know sometimes people use this. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, when we listen to our own body, think about it. Think about the last time you were quite sick. You had fever and, you didn't have energy and so forth. One of the things you're going to have is what we medically call anorexia, which basically means you are not hungry. Why are you not hungry when you are very sick? Because your body is telling you, look, if you don't eat, I can work much better. I'm not saying, not to eat for a whole week or something. That's not what I'm saying. Just skip, a couple of meals. And in that way, the body, instead of using its resources and energy to digest that food, it uses the resources to really focus on the pathogen, on the things that is attacking us, and in that way is much more efficiently at getting rid of this whatever thing is making us sick. So this is not something that an anecdotal type of story. There is research behind this that shows that when we fast, our immunity works best. So that's something to consider. Next time you don't feel so good, skipping, 1 or 2 meals, that's perfectly fine. And your immunity is able to work much better.
Wow. Would this, if my immunity improves, I don't know if this would also make some relations to aspects of sleep, for example.
That's right.
Would there be some benefits that I would get if I fast?
Yeah, this is something very interesting that we see a phenomena in cities specifically. If you are living in the country, you are, farming and doing this type of very heavy physical activity, you're going to get very hungry because you are using a lot of energy. Therefore, your body is going to ask you for more energy.
Yes.
And if you're doing farming and so forth, something that you know very well is that you need to wake up very early in the day. Because the day is cooler in the morning, you can work, and not being exposed to the heat and so forth. But when we move to the cities, we have advantages of having ceilings and having sometimes even air conditionings and all these things. It doesn't matter, when we are. And because of our work schedules, many times we make the mistake of eating too much in the evening.
Yes.
And that is a huge problem. You cause all kinds of problems in your body by eating too late. Because in the evenings, we should actually be preparing ourselves to rest. So think about it. If you're putting a lot of food in your system, your digestive tract was saying, oh, finally, I'm going to rest, like you do. At the end of the day, you say, okay, I don't want anything, I just want to go to my bed and rest. Well, think of what you're doing to your stomach. Here you are putting all this food, and you're putting your organs to work hard to digest just before going to bed. That is a huge mistake. And not only that, we have a hormone by the name of melatonin, one of the most important hormones in your body. It helps with immunity, it helps fight cancers, it helps in your mood, it helps in how much pain you detect. I mean, all kinds of benefits from this melatonin. And a lot of the melatonin is secreted in our intestines. And when there is food in our digestive tract, we block the melatonin. That's one of the reasons why you don't sleep good if you have that food there. So yes, fasting every evening is one of the best things that you can do. So as they say, the bigger, your supper, the bigger your pants, because in the evening it's much easier to gain weight.
I like that you're saying that, and I'm just thinking about our culture here, because we hardly have breakfast. We miss lunch or have a little lunch here there, and then dinner is time for us to do our ugali. And if you're a woman worth your name, you must cook a big ugali that people cannot jump over. So I'm really just thinking, how this would really affect our internal systems.
That's right.
Would this perhaps be behind even diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, it's very interesting if you are in the clinical practice and you see patients with rheumatoid arthritis. You know, let's separate that between osteoarthritis. That's the one that, you know, because of bad lifestyle, the joints start to degenerate, and usually people in their 50s, 60s, sometimes in their 40s start complaining of the back, the hip, the knee. You know, that's something else. We're talking about an autoimmune condition in which your immune system attacks your joints. They get nice and red and painful, and it's symmetrical and so forth. Anyhow, when you have somebody that has an attack of this, there's certain days these people have a lot of pain in their joints. Cool. The fascinating thing is that when they are fasting, the pains go away, which tells us that there is something related to my digestion and that problem. And it actually has to do with certain foods that people eat, especially things such as meats, you know, very inflammatory to somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. Any type of sugar will also cause you that. But there's certain people that are sensitive even to other things. So you need to find that. So go to a full plant-based diet. If that's not helping you with the pains, then you want to do what is called an elimination diet, in which you, for example, start with brown rice. You just eat brown rice for a whole day. And then you add, let's add, you know, sweet potatoes. So now you eat brown rice and sweet potato. That's the only thing you eat for a full day. And then you add tomato. And then you start adding one food at a time. And then you will quickly learn, you know, when I eat this particular food, it's making my joints painful and so forth. Okay. Then, you know, make sure that you take notice and eliminate completely that food and so forth.
So there you have actually related that the kinds of foods will have a direct effect, of course, on the pains that we have if you have rheumatoid arthritis. But there are other diseases, you know, lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, that is so common, and you find it's actually one of the most common disease you'd find here in Nairobi, in Kenya, and in different parts of Africa. Is it related, or is there something that we need to know about fasting?
Yeah. So, you know, in our program, the New Start program, patients come to us, and the first 3 days we put them on a complete fast. Well, we give them something that is that has no calories,
heavy,
just so that they can choose something, and they feel like they're eating, but they're actually not eating anything. It's a special gelatin. It's not your normal gelatin. It's something else done with agar-agar.
Oh, okay.
It's just something transparent that they eat. And some patients come to us and say, doctor, but you know, I cannot fast. You know, no. Yes. It's impossible for me to skip a meal. No, try it. You know, you will see the difference. And sure enough, you know, they can do it. And that is one of the best things you can do to control a diabetic. In fact, I have a book that was written by Harvard University in the late 1800s. And it has the guideline of how they used to treat diabetics back then. See, back then they didn't have, you know, metformin and glibenclamide and all these medications that we have today. So what they would do, they would put the patient on a complete fast, just water. That was the treatment.
How long?
And how long? They would measure the glucose in urine, and they would do it until the glucose got normal, period. Right. Now, now let me clarify this. I am not advising that method. Yes. And the reason why I'm not advising that method is because when somebody is fasting more than 3 days, there's some, electrolytes and different things that can go out of whack on somebody, and you need the supervision of a wise, physician as you're going through a long fast. In fact, I don't like long fast myself. I'd rather have a short fast, switch to a healthy diet. And that's what you can do. So if you don't want to fast, what you can do a raw vegetable 3-day fast. You're going to become a goat for 3 days, okay? Yes. Crunch, 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 crunch. You go to the market and you buy vegetables, the vegetables that you want, from broccoli to cabbage, salad, to kale, whatever you want that is there, just make sure you wash it well, of course, because it's not going to be cooked. And you're going to do this. Big salads, not a tiny little salad, because you need to fill your stomach. I can tell you, you're going to be eating less calories than what you're used to. Your system is going to cleanse quite nice, and you better watch that glucose, because your glucose is going to start coming down. Especially, I like to do this, especially on that diabetic patient that is not well under control. Yes. His sugars are in the 250, 300s, 400s. Man, you can help somebody like that, just like that, in a few days by putting them on a raw diet. Do not put oil. Oil is one of the worst enemies for diabetes. If you want to put something in your vegetables, a little bit of lemon and salt, that's it. A little bit of salt, specifically if you have high blood pressure. And in that way, it's a little bit more palatable. And like a goat, crunch, 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 crunch. You'll see how you get stabilized. In fact, you can see on the screen one of my studies. You can see the before and after on that patient. That patient was a diabetic, and he had high blood pressure. He had obesity, and you can see what happened to him in a matter of a year and a half. And today, that patient is not obese, is not diabetic, is not hypertensive. The 3 diseases got reversed. And let me show you the next slide. You can see there my contact information. If you want to go and read that study by yourself, just go to Google and put Francisco Ramirez ResearchGate. That'll take you to my page, and you can, read that article by yourself.
Thank you. That really covers some of the myths and beliefs that we have in this part of the world. And I'm sure you're learning something at home, that fasting is very beneficial. It's beyond spirituality. There is the physical part, and it has healing capabilities and properties which we can all embrace. What are the other problems that one can have if they continue, maybe that relates to fasting, if I can just put it that way?
That's right. Yeah, so we need to be careful with fasting, especially long-term fasting, okay? So somebody that is doing long-term fasting, one of the things that they need to watch out is their electrolytes. When you're fasting very long, the problem is that the body starts changing the usual method of energy. Usually we eat, and then that food goes into our system, and there's glucose circulating around our body, and then the body is able to grab some of that glucose that is circulating. But now when we're not eating, what ends up happening is that the body needs to enter other methods of generating energy. One of those methods has to do with our liver. Our liver has some energy stored there, stores it as a form that is called glycogen. And then what the body does, glycogen is very easy to break into small pieces of glucose. So the body breaks down that glycogen into those small pieces of glucose, and then that glucose starts circulating, and everything goes back to normality. That's what happens, by the way, when you're fasting like 8 hours, 9 hours. You haven't had time to eat the whole day. How come you haven't died? Well, because your body is converting that glycogen into that glucose. If you keep fasting, then that glycogen that the body has accumulated in your muscles and in your liver runs out. So what happens? Well,
Break it
your
down.
body now starts breaking down other things, such as fat. You take fat, and then through different biochemical processes, you convert that fat into glucose. Not only fat, if this fasting keeps going, we're talking about 10 days or so, now your body needs to start breaking down your own muscles. Your own muscles are being broken down into glucose. By the way, this is what happens also when somebody that has high glucose for long periods of time, secondary to a diabetes that is not under control. The person is not well medicated or is not doing anything, period. The reason why they lose a lot of weight, I don't know if you've ever seen that, is because even though they have a lot of sugar running around their body, because the diabetes, they cannot put that sugar in the cells, so the body starts finding alternative ways of generating energy, and that's why they start breaking down the muscles. That's not a good thing. That's never a good thing. That's why some diabetic needs to be treated correctly.
When you're just at that point, I would like to just pry a little further. For this patient who is diabetic and now the glucose is not finding its way into the cells.
That's right.
Would fasting help as an immediate way of allowing the sugar to find its way into the cells? Just in a simple way.
What happened with the person that is diabetic, we have a little doors around our cells, and when we are fasting, we increase those doors so that the cell can actually grab that sugar. And the second thing that fasting is going to help us with that is because when we have fat in our muscles, too much fat, that interrupts that process. So by fasting and or exercising, I remove some of that fat stored in my muscles, and that makes the cells more sensitive to glucose. Imagine that the door is there, but it's stuck with fat. So the sugar cannot go in because there's fat there. So by removing that fat, then that glucose can go in, and then the fasting glucose comes down.
Wow. We want to take a break, so just hold it there, Daktari. We'll be right back, and after the break, we will go deeper and we'll get to hear some questions from our audience that is with us here. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are glad you're still there, and now we want to go to our live audience. But before then, I have just one last question for Daktari. If you're an old person and you have been fasting for a very long time, what effect will that have on your body?
Yeah, that's not good. That is not good, because we need a certain amount of fat in our bodies. Especially elderly people need a little bit more fat than the younger people. Because, fat also has a protective effect on us. For example, when we fall, the fat layer that God gave us actually has a protective effect. In fact, let me give you an interesting fact. Fat is what makes women beautiful. Women have more fat than males. That's the way that God designed it, and the reason why, because of the biological purpose of the women, women need to have a little bit more storage for the day that they're pregnant, they're able to, have an extra reserve there in case there's needs and so forth. When you see the skin of a female, looks different than the skin of a male because of that fat content that they have in the surface. So yeah, watch out for that. Make sure that you don't go to the extreme. A useful measurement will be the body mass index. Anything under 19, 18, that's starting to go a little bit too low.
Yes.
You want to, keep it, within the normal range. Would be for somebody in Africa around 23, 24 to 20 and so forth, that range.
It's a good range. Thank you very much. Now we want to go to a live audience and would like to engage with you. So please go on with your first question.
Thank you very much. My name is Newton Ochieng. I have a question. It goes in line with the problem of overabundance or oversupply in the dietary techniques. Can fasting replace exercising, say in the case of obesity patients? Can it be used as a replacement mechanism of exercise?
Yeah. Well, the answer to that question is that there is no shortcuts.
Yes.
So people are always looking for shortcuts, and yes, somebody with a problem with obesity may benefit from fasting. The way that we would do on them would be to go into a 2 meals a day program. So you eat only twice a day, and you're doing actually a fasting every day by doing that. And in that way, you're stimulating, the loss of the weight. But no, the answer is you still need that exercise. In fact, in that manual that I was mentioning previously, that we used to fast you, for long periods of time, they realized that the patient did better if they actually got off their bed and did some exercise. At the beginning, they thought, okay, we're going to fast him for so long, we better keep him in bed, and not move him at all, But no, they realized the patient did much better if they combined the exercise with that fasting. So yes, definitely exercise is an integral part of the therapy for somebody that is trying to accomplish, the goal of losing weight.
So it's not a good shortcut. So there's no replacing fasting with exercise.
That's right. It's not either or. No. It's both.
It's both. It's both, or perhaps or none. If you're not doing any of them, let's go to our next question, and I would invite him.
Thank you for this occasion. My name is Andrew Angwenyi, and I have this question. We are talking about fasting on diabetic patients, and more so the elderlies. If you look at them, as you see in the just normal observation, some of them they look weak, and they look very slim, telling you that the fat in their bodies is minimal. And for sure, if you put this person on, and you see, one, they don't exercise. Somebody 80, 90 years, for sure, the exercise can do is minimal. And you put him on fasting. I'm wondering if this person can manage all what your take is. Can he? It means he must do this one under a close watch of a medical personnel. If anything goes wrong, he can address it. Otherwise, it will be too dangerous for this person.
Yeah. That's a very good question. That's an excellent question. But something I can assure you, if they're diabetic, most probably they don't have too little fat. They actually have too much fat. And what happens is that many times our eyes are deceiving. I've seen some people that you can literally look at them and you say, oh, this person is not overweight, that person is, normal weight. And not until, you take the measurements and so forth, you even take the body clips, there's a little instrument that we can use to measure, the fat in the skin. You quickly see, the measurements come up as they are actually obese. So yes, our eyes can be deceiving and so forth. Now, if it's somebody that was a very undisciplined diabetic, there's some diabetics, they know they're diabetic and they don't care, and they're eating all kinds of things and so forth, and the sugars, are 400 and so forth for, weeks and months. Those people are going to become very, very, very thin, that type of person, we would not put him on a fast, definitely, we would put him on a healthy diet type of approach. And yes, if somebody is very elderly, we're talking about the 70 and so forth, I would be, careful with the fasting, definitely. Would need something to be, monitored by a physician, but I would rather focus on them instead of focusing on the fasting. I would focus on them on the whole food, plant-based diet to make sure that they're following a wholesome, healthy diet in order to help them with their diabetes.
Thank you very much. Clearly, there is a place for everyone,
Yep.
Regardless of your age. So let's have our next question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Rose Nyavoke, and I have one question as far as this discussion is concerned. Our topic is about fasting, and we have seen several advantages about fasting. And my question is related with the diabetic patients. Now, I understand that they are not supposed to skip meals at a time. Their sugar levels might fluctuate. So I'm confused. If I advise my clients that they are supposed to do fasting, how long will I advise them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we're talking about diabetics, let me just make this clear. There are certain medications that cause the sugar to go too low, okay? If you're taking one of those medications, it is not advisable to fast, because if you fast and you take that medication, then your glucose can go too low, and then you're going to get yourself in trouble. Okay, so that's why if you're taking medication for diabetes, you need to talk to your health professional so that they can give you some advice about it, because you may have to switch medication, you may have to, decrease the dosage. Also, people that take things like insulin, for example, insulin can cause the sugar to go low. That's why in a program, for example, the first day that the patients come, because we know the glucose is going to come down, we cut by half their insulin. Okay, so yeah, watch out for those type of medications. Also, somebody with liver problems or with kidney problems, okay, those need to talk to their health professional before going fasting. Somebody pregnant, okay, you don't want that female to go fasting. They need that food in order for that baby to grow properly and so forth.
So she was asking the duration, like maybe even within a day. How long? Maybe that's what you could answer that aspect, and also the aspect of intermittent fasting.
That's right.
It's a popular stuff this part of the world.
That's correct. So yeah, intermittent fasting is something very good. There's many different ways of doing intermittent fasting. The one I like to use is the 2 meals a day fasting. So you have breakfast, then you don't have anything until the afternoon around 3 or 4, that's your second meal. And then you don't eat anything until next morning. That's called intermittent fasting. So you're getting the benefits of fasting every day. In fact, I've been following that program since 1997. And I love it. It is fantastic. In fact, let me show you in the screen, the one that says intermittent fasting. As you can see on the screen, that is my cousin. And you can see what happened to her. She was having serious problems with her weight. And by doing intermittent fasting, you can see what she was able to accomplish secondary to intermittent fasting. So a diabetic, how long should they be fasting? I rather do 1 or 2 days, okay? If they're taking some of these medications that cause low glucose and so forth, I'd rather not fast, rather do the raw food fasting, and then they switch to a healthy type of food, and then in that way, they get that benefit long term.
You know, this is a very interesting topic, Daktari, and that's why everybody has switched to the diabetic as if it's the only disease. Because there are many myths that have been said in regards to diabetes, the amount of eating, the types and all that. And now we are talking about fasting. We're saying reduce. We are even saying you can do without. So what do you have to say maybe in a few minutes? What does it, is it beneficial for somebody who is diabetic to actually not eat little meals throughout the day, every 2 hours or every 3 hours?
That's right.
Yes.
A personal friend of mine, Dr. Kale Oba, she's originally from Czech Republic. She published a fabulous paper. They had these two groups of diabetics. They gave them the same amount of calories. One, they were giving those calories in small meals throughout the day. The other group was taking the same food, the same calories, but taking them as 2 meals a day. Guess what? Better glucose control, more, losing weight. The group on the 2 meals a day compared to the multiple meals a day. Multiple meals a day is something we used to think about good back in the 1980s and so forth. Unfortunately, there are many people that have not updated. That is not what the latest research is showing. The latest research is showing intermittent training, 2 meals a day is the ideal program for the diabetic.
So it doesn't matter if a diabetic is even if they're experiencing weight loss, then they need to still actually be on the 2 meals a day until they open up the cells and maybe they can gain some muscle.
That's correct.
Want to mention
that stimulates the what is called insulin sensitivity. Your body is able to use the insulin much better, and secondary to that, you will see that reflected on your fasting glucose, how they will start coming down. In fact, most of our patients, the majority of them, we have to decrease or stop their medication because their glucose now starts coming way too low. So you have to make adjustments on the medication if you get in the real program.
How long would one take if, let's say, they are experiencing weight loss as a result of diabetes?
That's right.
And now we are telling them, hey, we want to reduce what you're eating so that we can increase that sensitivity. Because in this part of the world, you don't want to appear very thin.
That's right.
People think you're very poor or there's some problem or you're dying soon, So would you like to mention that because it's a very common thing, please?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And this is the thing that sometimes culturally we do certain behaviors because we're dictated by the pressure of the people around us. I would rather laugh at me because I look like poor and be healthy, okay? Because having too much body weight, especially if you have, African blood, is actually not good for you. You are gonna die early. And why would you wanna, chop off years of your life? So what we need to use as a guideline is going to be things such as the body mass index. That's going to really tell us where we're at. Am I thinking that I'm too thin and I'm really not that thin? So you can go ahead, and consult with a nutritionist, such as yourself, Gladys, in which you're able to do an evaluation, and then that can really tell you where you're at. And that's the best way to do it, not by thinking what other things, because that's not a good guideline.
And maybe just one last thing, Dr. to just mention the aspect of the weight that people quickly lose as a result of maybe fasting or diabetes or otherwise. Is there an optimum where you finally get to where you really belong after all?
That's right. So, if you lose weight too fast, I can assure you're going to gain back that weight. And that's why I'm very against, those very crazy diets that people do, they find on the internet, because they just bounce back, and it doesn't work. I'd rather the patient lose, 1, 2 pounds, 3 pounds maximum, a week, but keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. That's a healthy way of losing that weight, and you will keep that weight off. So that's the best thing that you can do.
Wow, thank you so much, because that is a common thing, and we have had it over and over again, where different people actually believe that I cannot I cannot go on a fast, or I'm looking too thin, or I'm too thin on the outside. But actually, when we measure them, you know, the fat, the skin fold
the skin
thickness,
fat, that's right.
you find somebody is actually very heavy.
That's right.
Internally. Thank you so much, Daktari. Thank you so much for being a very lively audience. We are so glad you're here and you've asked very useful questions representing the community out there. We've come to the end of this part of the segment. In a little while, we will be going to learn what else does fasting do. What are some of the things that we can do, some home remedies you can practice at home that would help you learn, practice, do, and even live a healthier lifestyle. So don't go away. We are now in the third part of our program today, and we want to learn something exciting. I'm so happy to have you, Esther. It's a great honor. We have Esther URS all the way from Weimar University, and she's going to take us through natural remedies that you may use in case you have some toxins. Remember what we were talking about earlier. And welcome to our show today. Take us through, why is the table so beautiful?
Thank you. So we're going to talk in this class about charcoal. Charcoal is a very powerful substance. We can find charcoal powder or tablets. They have even charcoal toothpaste, charcoal patches. You can find in many presentations. But I prefer the charcoal powder for many reasons I'm going to explain later.
Why would you, maybe before we even go really deep into the lesson, I'd like to know that, is this something that anybody can use? That's you know, anyone.
Yes, charcoal is very, it's inexpensive. It's not expensive. You just have to find the right kind.
Yes.
So you have to find someone who can sell charcoal that is food grade. It's eucalyptus wood, some types of wood, coconut shell. That's the best charcoal to take internally, especially when you're going to take it internally. You want the right type.
Go ahead. We can start with the first,
Yes.
what you want us to learn.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about internal uses. When you have food poisoning or you want to detox, charcoal can really absorb. The word is absorb with a D as in David. It's going to absorb, it can absorb heavy metals, many different drugs, many different poisons and toxins. So your liver is going to like it, your kidneys. So it's good for the system to detox. So we're going to learn 3 or 4 different drinks for different situations when you can drink it. So can we go ahead and make the first drink?
Please go ahead. I am waiting to see this charcoal.
So all you need for the first formula is just water. And you don't have to measure the water. It can be 1 cup, just 1 glass of water. And then it's important to notice that I'm going to add the powder to the water. If you add the powder first and then you add the water, it's going to go poof, and then it's very fine.
And sometimes it can actually even overflow.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's important that you add the water first and then just 1 tablespoon of charcoal. So this powder, see how it's very fine. Be careful not to stain your clothes, your fabric, your carpet, because it really can really stain. So then you just add it to your water.
Oh, and that's it.
And that's it.
Ooh.
So this is a drink that you can take for anything. If you want to absorb germs or toxins, you can take this drink.
You have used the word absorb, and it is not absorb with a B. Would you like to explain the difference between absorb and adsorb?
Yes, so the difference between absorption with a D is the term absorption, it's the action of like a magnet.
So pulling.
It's pulling, the charcoal is going to pull to itself, it's going to attract, it's going to trap it, it's not going to let it go. It's very powerful. It's like it's an electrical reaction. And absorption with B as in boy, absorption is like a sponge that is going to absorb water, it's going to swell up. This one is not going to change the structure of the charcoal.
So it will just remain the way it is.
Like a magnet. I like to say it like
so
a
it's the
magnet.
magnetic part of charcoal that we're talking about that makes it very
Right.
powerful. Okay, so this is ready?
This is ready to drink, but I'm not going to give it to you because I want to show you the second formula.
Okay, so you are actually advancing the same formula. So this is the first one. You didn't measure, you just put in a tablespoon.
Just one
that's
and
it.
water. 1 tablespoon of charcoal and water, and you can drink like this. If you have little children that they have a stomach pain or diarrhea or some type of infection, you can mix it with grape juice.
Oh, yeah, and it will taste yummy because I don't think any child would like to drink
Yeah,
grape
they're gonna say, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But if you tell them it's grape juice, you can hide the charcoal.
Yeah, and the color will be all gone.
So the second formula, I'm gonna add.
You can put it here.
Yes. So the second formula, I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 1 tablespoon of honey.
Okay.
Okay. So the difference with when you add olive oil is this is gonna help you with the digestion. But if you have diarrhea, you should not use olive oil, of course, because it's gonna help you go to the bathroom.
Okay, I'm just thinking you have spoken about olive oil. Olive oil is not necessarily cheap in this part of the world.
Correct.
So what would I do if I don't have olive oil? I'm in the village, I have this oil, what should I use?
You can use another oil or just don't use anything. It's okay not to use the olive oil.
Okay, so maybe corn oil. We have lots of corn oil here.
You could use corn oil,
Okay.
yes. And then I'm gonna add the honey.
Okay.
And then mix it really well. And this formula, it's very good for gastritis, digestion problems like colitis, indigestion. If you have stomach pain, it's going to help you. It's very, very healing. And you can take it for 1 week. Every night you can take it. And then for 1 week, it's going to do good to your body.
So I just need to add the little, the olive oil, a tablespoon, and another tablespoon of honey, and the 1 tablespoon of charcoal into an unmeasured amount of water. So no pressure on the amount of water.
No, no pressure. In fact, every time you take a glass of charcoal remedy, you should take another glass of pure water.
To sort of like flash off.
That's right. So I'm going to add,
For you.
this is peppermint.
Yes.
And it's very good for digestion.
Smells good.
So if you have eucalyptus, you can add 1 drop. If you have peppermint, you can add 2 or 3 drops of 1, 2. And this is gonna taste really good, and it's good for digestion.
So this is for somebody who still has gastritis, or somebody who still has
Ulcers.
indigestion, ulcers, someone who has
right.
taken in so many toxins and is actually detoxing.
That's
so they
correct.
can actually add that. So this one, does it have any special thing that it's adding to it, or just aiding the digestion?
This is good for digestion.
Yes.
So, and it could be a tea. So
Yes.
instead of water, if you don't have the oil, you can make a chamomile tea, something that is good for digestion, and then add the charcoal to it.
It's almost becoming a juice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want you to try it because it's really good. But I'm going to add another ingredient for another formula. If you have an infection,
Yes.
a sore throat, or you're starting to feel sick, maybe a virus, you can add lemon juice. So if you add lemon to this drink, you're adding the benefit of vitamin C from the lemon. So we have
Yes.
1 lemon here. Now, can we take this at any time during the day?
That's a good,
Yeah,
maybe
what-
you should be able to tell me that.
So this is very important to know, and I'm squeezing the lemon here. It's very important that that you don't take this with if you're taking medications that your doctor gave you, because the charcoal is capable of absorbing a lot of different drugs.
As you said earlier, yes.
Aspirin, benzodiazepines, acetaminophen, and many others. So if you're taking blood pressure medication or other medications, you need to wait 2 hours away from your medication.
So 2 hours before or after?
Well,
My
I
medications.
like to take charcoal at night. So maybe you take your night medications at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. And then right before you go to sleep, you can take your charcoal remedy. That way the charcoal can act during the night.
Oh, wow. And then I'm thinking about many people in my community and where I come from, and even in this part of the world, who may just be thinking, any charcoal could do this magic. Would you tell me if I can use we have charcoal here for cooking, we call it makaa. Would it do the
Right.
same magic?
So the charcoal that is medicinal, it has been activated. They burn the wood without oxygen, and it's a special process. If you don't burn the wood or the food completely, or the coconut shells completely, when you make charcoal, if you buy the makaa, that one is not 100% burnt. It has to be 100% burnt. If there's any fat or anything that's from the food or from the wood that is not 100% burnt, it can be carcinogenic. So it could work, but it's not good for your system. So we don't want to bring something that is going to give you cancer instead of helping you. So it's very important that it's the right charcoal.
It's the right charcoal. Then I'm thinking of something else. You saw me cover this, and I don't know if it means anything. How long can I keep my charcoal?
That's a good question. So charcoal doesn't go bad.
Okay, so you can have it as long as you have
So
bought it and prepared it.
You're
very
not
well.
going to use it every single day. So it's good to have it at home. Find the right one, and keep it at home, and it doesn't have expiration date. But you have to keep it covered because it can absorb gases from the environment, and anything that's toxic, it will attract it. So you need to keep it covered, and then you can keep it at home.
As long as you are unwell.
Correct.
Or as
And
long as you're well. It's a remedy that you always
correct,
need.
and you use it whenever you need it, or share with your friends or family whenever they need it. So you want to try this one?
Yes. Is this...
Bon appetit.
Ooh.
So this one is going to help you with digestion problems. It's going to help you with any germs. So if you are getting sick, it's going to trap a lot of different germs. So, and it doesn't taste bad because it has honey, and it has but remember, it's medicine. It doesn't have to taste 100%.
Not really, it's true. But it tastes good.
Because
I can
it has
taste the
honey.
lemon, the honey. It's actually an exciting way to drink the charcoal. I'm
Yes.
learning something new. I haven't done this before. So I would really like to do. But just in case I don't have the powder and I have bought the tablets, how many of them can I use?
So the tablets, see, I carry tablets when I travel. They're very, you can, the powder can be messy, so the tablets are good. But the tablets are less strong than the powder because they have, if you read the ingredients, they have a little sweetener, but they're still very, very effective. I like if I have a sore throat when I travel, or if I'm stressed, I can put tablets in my mouth and just let the tablets melt, and the charcoal is around my throat. I swallow, and I keep it in my mouth. But if you have an emergency, if you have someone like poisoning or very strong stomach pain, by the time you crush your tablets, you're wasting precious time, especially if it's like a drug overdose or like a poisoning. You're going to the emergency room. You should be giving charcoal already. In the time you get to the hospital, you are giving the benefit of the charcoal. So here I have 8 tablets. 8 tablets is 1 tablespoon of charcoal.
Okay.
But then we would have to crush this, and then it's going to take time. That's why I like the powder better.
The powder one.
But if you or if you have capsules, then you have to open the capsules to use the powder.
Oh. So that actually answers a question that I had. Then I'm thinking of something else, Esther. Can this actually give me constipation? Can I overdo this?
Okay, so because the charcoal is going to attract water, and if you are dehydrated, if you already have constipation problems, this could make your problem worse. You should drink more water when you drink charcoal, and if you use it with the olive oil, I guarantee you it's not going to give you constipation. But you need to drink more water when you're taking charcoal drinks.
So that's the precaution, that all the time I'm taking charcoal,
More
if I'm
water.
going to take this, I need to take perhaps another glass
Another
and
one.
another glass.
Yeah, maybe 2 more. Yes.
2 more. So you don't just take that one glass and you're good. You say, hey, I'm okay now.
More water.
And what about with medications? I had you speak something about medication. Would we separate completely, or would we use medication together with charcoal?
Yeah, don't take it together. So your food and your medication, you need to wait about 2 hours or 3 hours away from each other. So don't take charcoal with medication, because then the medication is not going to work. Some medications. So charcoal can absorb a lot of different medications and a lot of different toxins and a lot of different heavy metals. We have a long list that maybe we can share later. I can share with you. We have a long list of things. There are things that cannot be absorbed by charcoal, but there are many, many others that can be absorbed. And it's important that when you make your drink, you need to finish it, because if you say, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere, come back in 1 or 2 hours and I'll finish it, and you leave it uncovered, it's gonna attract bad stuff from the environment.
So that means even this I need to finish,
yes,
if I intend to get the benefits.
Yes.
What about if I want it with warm water? It's cold, maybe I don't want it. Does it matter?
Yes, you can make it with warm water. It doesn't matter.
And does it mean also I can use charcoal into any ordinary juice, or?
That's right. You can mix charcoal with whatever. The only way you cannot take charcoal is dry, because it's so fine, it's going to go to your nose, and it's very fine, the powder.
When
So
talking about it, you cannot take it when it's dry. I remember I have seen or come across an incident where a child actually took or was fed on a little paste, on a little powder of this, and they actually choked.
Yes.
You can actually choke.
It's dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous because it's really, really fine powder.
The powder, but the tablets you can actually put in the mouth, and
Yes,
it's easy to
they're compact.
deal with.
That's
Those are very many uses. So what is really your parting shot for people who are struggling at home with many issues?
Well, I really love charcoal because it's not expensive. If you have an emergency, especially if you have kids, you should have charcoal at home. Now, when you have a overdose or poisoning, a bad poisoning, you need to take 6 to 10 tablespoons of charcoal.
Tablespoons. So you mean 6 of these?
6 big ones. That's a kid. So 5 or 6 for a kid and 10 to 12 for an adult. So it's a lot of charcoal, and you're going to the emergency room. This is for poisoning. So this is very important to know that charcoal is what we use in the emergency room. When we have an overdose or poisoning, the first thing they're going to receive in the emergency room is charcoal.
And do you do this? Do you practice this in your
Yes,
university?
yes. Actually, I've given charcoal sometimes to someone that came with an overdose. We have a tube, so it looks like toothpaste, but it's actually sucrose. So it's sugar, and you squeeze it into NG tube down to the stomach, and then sometimes they're going to start vomiting. But you can see how they start waking up, and the charcoal it's making that drug, invalid. It's not working.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much. This is very wonderful to learn that there are simple products in the market that we can use. And they're not actually in the stores, they're in our homes.
That's right.
We can actually learn how to make this activated charcoal. I hope in future lessons we will have how to learn something like this.
Yes.
And be able to prepare at home the activated charcoal. Thank you so much for being with us. If you want to ask questions, if you want to join us, if you want to be part of this show, we always say you should never shy away. The number displayed on your screen is where you can reach us at, and also our Twitter handle and our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for always being with us, and we always look forward to having you. Thank you and goodbye from us.